I'm hitting that old Toby. So, in the Two Towers, I love the fact that Boromir's death happens off screen. Is just so hilarious to me that Tolkien would make this decision, right? Aragorn is tracking Frodo because Frodo has decided to go on the quest to the Mountain of Doom by himself, and then Aragorn um, hears Boromir's horn, and he goes back and he finds Boromir, filled with arrows, and that's about it. It happens off screen, and I think that's hilarious, given the fact that Boromir is such an iconic and beloved character. But then Tolkien ups the stakes and decides that for the next couple of chapters, we're gonna spend our time with Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli tracking the two hobbits, Merry and Pippin. And in all of these chapters, we have a lot of running around and a lot of Aragorn sniffing the ground. Not a lot of things are happening. And we get the two perspectives from Aragorn and his company and the two hobbits, Merry and Pippin, which have been carried away by the orcs, right? And this is, to me, it's a bit unnecessary. It is a bit of filler, right? I don't condone this practice of just wasting the reader's time, but I understand why it has to be this way, right? And I have to say this about the Ents, right? Is Treebeard down bad? Is he bricked up? Because Treebeard cannot stop talking about these Ent wives, right? And how they disappeared. And this is a real mystery that I don't think has an answer, right? The Ent wives just vanished into thin air, and the Ents don't even remember how they looked. So it happened a long time ago. So what's happening with these Ent wives? Why did they disappear? And of course, my only real criticism is, yet again, we have, random characters just bursting out into song again and again, especially Treebeard, right? And it's just, this is just not my cup of tea. I just don't particularly enjoy these parts of the books. I'm sure there are many fans that just love, these songs and these lore dumps. I'm not a fan. Whenever Treebeard in particular started humming his little songs, I was just like, bro, please stop, Tolkien. Please stop. This needs to stop, right? And yet again, this is just my personal opinion based on preference, but Tolkien's only real flaw as a writer is that his dialogue is, to me, it's stiff. Okay, it's stiff. It's almost every character has to speak in this, alas, ye come thither, we must go in a fortnight, right? And I understand why this has to be, this old-timey English, if you will, and it just makes everybody sound exactly the same, right? It kind of, dialogue, in a way, it's a good method by which you can characterize your characters, but if every character is speaking exactly the same and sounding exactly the same, they're basically indistinguishable. They talk exactly the same, and they use the same words, like alas and ere, and so forth. It's just my personal taste. I'm not a fan of this, right? Not all fantasy stories of fiction based on, these medieval or feudal or even older genres, they don't have to speak in this old-timey English, right? be a bit more diverse with your jargon, right? With your language. He was a master of language, and yet the dialogue is just stiff. It's stiff. There's not a lot of room when it comes to the dialogue. It's just like, whenever I'm reading dialogue in these books, I'm just like, okay, here we go again. Here we go again. But on the other side, paradoxically, I mean, what the characters say, it's just so, endlessly quotable. There are some amazing quotes here, right? But let's get to our good friend Gandalf. He has been resurrected. He came back as Gandalf the White. Now, we've all seen the videos of George R. R. Martin criticizing Tolkien for this. He says that Gandalf shouldn't have come back, and I would say, the reason Tolkien brought Gandalf back is for plot convenience, okay? And because he's a beloved character, top 5, right? But of course, if you read a book, I don't think Rohan would have won the battle at Helm's Deep if it weren't for Gandalf bringing more people, right? So you could say, Gandalf the White is a bit of a, an ass pull. He's a bit of OP, but it's still, it is what it is. It's so subjective, right? And I've noticed this about Gandalf, and I don't think a lot of fans have talked about it. Maybe I'm wrong about this, but this is what I've observed, especially in The Two Towers, and now I'm reading The Return of the King, and I've spotted this as well in that book. But Gandalf the White, he has a bit of a condescending tone. He has a superiority complex. He's a bit arrogant. Maybe I'm wrong about this. This is what I've observed, and it bothers me a little bit. It's a bit irritating. Especially this is most noticeable when he talks to Pippin. When he talks to Pippin, he just devastates and destroys Pippin, demeaning him, calling him stupid, whatever, and then a second later, he's all joyful and happy and friendly, and I'm like, this dichotomy of personality. Is Gandalf suffering from, borderline personality disorder? What's going on here? It's like, Gandalf, pick a lane, either be friendly or be mean. And demeaning and condescending and patronizing. You can't be both. And it's so sudden, this change. He's like talking down and talking shit to Pippin, calling him this and that, basically calling him trash and dumb. And then a second later, he's like giggling and laughing and being all friendly to Pippin. And I'm just like, this is so startling. This is just so polarizing, I don't understand this part about Gandalf's character, right? It's just so out of the blue almost, and maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I haven't heard a lot of fans talk about this, and this is another piece of evidence regarding Saruman. Okay, so now Saruman has been defeated in Isengard. He is in the tower. He's trapped there with Wormtongue, and Gandalf and company come along, right? And they have this exchange, this dialogue. And in this dialogue, and this is yet again something that I have observed in Saruman's dialogue with Gandalf, I sense a lot of venom, a lot of hatred, a lot of loathing from Saruman for Gandalf. There's this grudge, there's this grudge, this bitter, sour grudge that I detect in Saruman for Gandalf. And Saruman keeps talking about, oh, you're gonna lecture me, Gandalf the Great, you're gonna give me lessons, your arrogance, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, he kind of, Saruman is on something, again, Saruman is this, over the top, most respected wizard ever. He was the head of the council before his betrayal, and yet, I don't know if it's jealousy towards Gandalf, but there is this animosity, this hostility for Gandalf that Saruman has, even though, in the hierarchy, I guess Gandalf is a couple of steps below Saruman, but there's this ire, there's this venom that Saruman has in particular for Gandalf. So I think that's interesting. Now going back to Boromir, I love how Tolkien, even though Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli, they're pressed for time to find Merry and Pippin, they still take the time to give Boromir his funeral, his honorable funeral, because they respected him. He was a man of Gondor, etc. And they take the time, they put him on a boat, they put his sword or axe or whatever and his shield, and they send him off, I think on the river Anduin, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just so tragic and sad, right? How he goes out, and you imagine and you question yourself, what could have been if Boromir survived, right? But it is what it is. And I love that little touch that Tolkien does with Boromir's funeral, and you really can sense, the loss and the grief and the mourning and the, camaraderie and the friendship, right, that these people have, right? And they've lost one of their own, right? So it's just a little nice touch, right? But now, I just have to ask, where's Arwen? Where's Arwen in these books? In the Fellowship, she's briefly mentioned in Rivendell, right? She is barely mentioned, she's in Rivendell, period. Right? And then she disappears completely from the narrative. And now in the Two Towers, we are introduced to, Eowyn, the niece or the daughter of King Theoden, and she's all over the place. She's just she's getting, she's, I don't know if she's a main character, but she is definitely a secondary character, and she's all over the place, and she, she's fangirling over Aragorn, right? She almost, she confesses indirectly, to him, and there's this bizarre, love triangle between them, and I don't understand this choice, because you have on one side, Arwen, and she's just not even there. She's not even a character. She's inexistent. And then we have Eowyn, and she's just all over the place. She's front and center with Aragorn, confessing to him, simping for Aragorn. And I'm just what has led to this decision? Because, listen, in the books, it's just barely hinted at. It's so covert and subtle, the way Tolkien handles this, but it's so underground that if you read the books for the first time, you might not even notice. It's so negligible that there's a relationship between Aragorn and Arwen, right? In the Fellowship, when the company leaves on the quest, it's just it's barely hinted at that Aragorn and Arwen have something going on. It's just so subtle, and you can almost notice this from Aragorn's attitude and the way he conducts himself, from his mannerisms. It's so faint that it almost disappears, that it's almost not noticeable, right? So, it is what it is, right? And I have to say this, after meeting Theoden King, I thought it's so strange, right? Even in the movies, but a lot of times in the books, every time this man opens his mouth, it's yep, I'm gonna die, bro. yep, this is my last ride, bro. Like, Theoden has this, I don't know, this death wish. Like, it's so prominent. It's just so in your face. And to me, it's just hilarious. Like, a character might come up to Theoden and say, yo, King, what's up? You know, it's a beautiful day. And he's like, yes, but I'll never see another beautiful day. This is my last day, bro. Like, he is so, like, I wouldn't say pessimistic and cynical, but he's just like this. He's on a one-track mind. And to me, at least, this has a comedic effect that every time this king opens his mouth, it has to be something like, well, you know, I'm not gonna make it, folks. I'm going out. I'm right into my doom. You know, it's like, he can't stop. He can't say anything else. Like, you know, maybe they're sitting and having a meal, you know, and somebody says something, and he's like, yeah, this food is great, but I'm not gonna taste another good meal again because I'm gonna die, by the way. Let everybody know that I'm gonna die, okay? This is the end for me. You know, and it's just so startling. Like, what happened to this man? I get it that he's old. I get it that he was corrupted by, you know, Wormtongue and maybe Saruman, and, you know, he lost his son. And he feels old, and he feels, you know, he feels like he isn't matching the times that he's living in. But it's just so hilarious. And I know that this was not the effect that Tolkien wished for, but it's just so hilarious to me. This man, no matter what anybody else says or asks him, he's just like, yep, I'm gonna die on me. Yep, I'm not gonna see the next day, bro. Yep, I'm gonzo. I'm done for, okay? I'm done for. Stop cheering me up, okay? It's just brutally hilarious because he's so somber. He's so serious about this, and I guess the original effect should be that you're, oh my god, this is so sad, man. This guy, you know, he's been through a lot, right? But to me, it's just hilarious and sad, but hilarious. Poor King Theoden, you know, he is not in a good mindset, right? You know, he's all about, you know, we're gonna defeat our foes and we're gonna ride to victory, you know, triumph, or we're gonna die trying. But at the same time, he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. Nope, not me. No, I'm done for. I'm dead, boy. Like, hilarious, but he has one of the greatest quotes and one of the greatest questions of all, you know, that endures, where at one point during the war at Helm's Deep, I think, he's like, you know, what can a man do against all of this reckless hate? Like, and I love that. It's just so profound, and just so, you know, when you have this reckless, senseless hate, you know, just shot at you from every direction, you know, the attack on Helm's Deep by orcs, you know, for no real reason, just because evil is evil, you know, it's just so. And then, of course, this is Tolkien talking about war, of course. You know, what can people do against such reckless, irrational hate? I love that. You know, that's tough. That's tough, okay? And listen, we gotta talk about Gollum. Because now, finally, Frodo and Sam have been introduced to Gollum / Smeagol, and he's gonna take them to, you know, that special path leading to the Mountains of Doom that nobody else knows about. And in the movies, I never liked how Frodo was portrayed as this angelic and overly forgiving and lenient person that was so empathetic and sympathetic towards Gollum. Because, of course, the ring destroyed Gollum. The ring turned Gollum into this vile creature, and now Frodo has to carry the burden of the ring, which devastates him as well. And he can, you know, he has somebody to relate to. And in the movie, it's just so disgusting in a way, because Gollum, deadass, wants to kill these guys, right? And no matter what Gollum does, Frodo is just like, oh, leave him be, Sam. Leave him be, you don't know what it's like to carry the ring. He was a hobbit once, The ring did this to him. And I'm like, bro, this dude wants to kill your ass, bro. To take the precious, okay? And what I love is that in the book, Frodo isn't so forgiving. Frodo isn't so lenient, right? The only reason Frodo tolerates Gollum in the books is because he has to lead them to that special path. That's the only reason, right? Frodo has no, empathy or sympathy, that is over the top or exaggerated for Gollum, right? He tells him after this is done, get your ass out of here, boy. I like that about Frodo in the books. And I also like the fact that both in the books and in the movies, from day one, from the first second, Sam, understands completely who Gollum is, and he's about that action. He's gonna beat Gollum's ass, right? And if it weren't for Frodo, Sam would have done a great deed and gotten rid of Gollum from the beginning. I like that. I guess Sam is a bit portrayed or misunderstood as a simplistic character, but still, Sam's got that third eye. Sam, you can say whatever you want about Samwise Gamgee, but that boy can see shit for what it is, and he ain't about that bullshit, right? He tells it how it is. I like that about him, right? Samwise is a true friend, right? And he understands that Gollum will do anything to kill their asses to take the precious, right? And he always has an eye on him, right? And right in the movies, I always hated that part when Gollum sprinkles the bread on Sam and Frodo goes ballistic and tells Sam to fuck off. That was so ew, right? That was ew. Right? It didn't make any sense to me at the time, and it still doesn't, right? That scene is disgusting. Doesn't make any sense, right? And of course, by the end, Gollum leads Frodo and Sam into a trap, and, the spider Shelob, stings Frodo and he becomes paralyzed. And Sam thinks that Frodo is dead, and so he takes the ring and he becomes a ring bearer, right? And that's how the book ends. But I never noticed this, and it caught me off guard because I never made the connection that by taking the ring, that Sam also becomes a ring bearer. Only for a short time, but he becomes a ring bearer. So it's so interesting, right? It's so interesting. And I guess this is the difference between all the other previous ring bearers and holders and Sam and Frodo, because now they share this burden, which is, of course, another testament to their friendship in a way, right? By the end, Frodo can't really do much because the ring is just too much, and we know how it all ends. It ends up Sam carrying Frodo all the way to the top, right? So I like this about this little difference that now two persons share, the burden of the ring, and they succeed. Maybe because of this, right? In a way, maybe because of this. I think I'm gonna leave it at this. I still think that Aragorn having his, regal sword from the beginning is a big mistake on Tolkien's part, because in the books, of course, they changed it, and Aragorn has this character arc of growing, developing, and accepting his true destiny of being the next king, right? And in the book, he has the sword from day one, and he's all right. He has already accepted his fate, right? As the heir of Gondor, Isildur's heir. He has already accepted this from day one, so there isn't, and when it comes to Gandalf, to Aragorn, there is no real conflict of any sort when it comes to his character. There is no something that he has to overcome, And in the book, he became Strider, this ranger, I guess because he wanted to protect the kingdom, right? Whereas in the movies, he became a ranger because he had to run away and hide because, Sauron was sending the Nazgul after him or whatever, right? But and I've watched a video about this, that in the books, Aragorn could have claimed his rightful place as king from day one, but he didn't because he understood that the kingdom and the people needed him. So this is what he had to do to become a ranger, to protect his people and kingdom from the shadows or whatever, which shows that he's a man of, he's not a glutton. He is not vain. He doesn't seek power. He seeks to, protect, which is a nice touch. But I think the part with him having the sword from the beginning and just accepting his fate from the beginning is just a bit, it's too perfect. It's too nice, right? It's just, it leaves you okay. It leaves you a bit flat and deflated, right? I mean, there is, I love the fact that I think in this book in particular, there are a couple of times when, Aragorn is confronted by people and he just pulls out his sword and he says, look at you, and he says, look at this the sword of swords, and I'm the heir of Isildur, the next king of Gondor, look at me. And everybody's just like, oh boy, and I love that scene when the Rohirrim pull up and encircle them, and Eomer pops up and asks them, who the fuck are you people? And Aragorn just steps up, pulls out his sword, and he's like, hey, I'm him, boy. I'm him. And Eomer is just like, at first, he's just like shocked. He's just like, huh? And then he switches it up and he says, okay, whatever, we're out of here. See you later. I love that. It's so, yet another dichotomy, right? It's hilarious. But that's about it, I guess, I think the movies did a better job at portraying just what a curse and what a burden the ring is, right? We can see just Frodo just being devoured, by the ring, by the temptation, by the pure evil, by the toxicity of the ring. Whereas in the book so far, it's just, it's not that well done. It's just like, Frodo is tired. He's always sleeping. He doesn't eat a lot. He doesn't drink water. He fatigue. And I guess that's it, right? And it's unfortunate. It is what it is, right? So the movies took what already was and they improved upon them. They polished them to near perfection. And I like that, right? Whereas in the books, they seem more like unfinished concepts, right? The main concepts are not brought to fruition, right? And I guess this is a good piece of advice for aspiring writers. If you have, you're writing a book and you have the main ideas of your book, don't leave them, in the rough. You have to polish them. You have to, you have to escalate. You have to improve on your ideas to the best of your abilities. Don't just settle for the basic idea of something, right? Which is, there's a ring, it's bad, it's heavy, I'm sleepy, I'm tired all the time, and that's about it, right? And temptation, whatever, right? If you want to support your boy, I got a few books on Amazon. The link will be down below. Thanks for watching. Keep on reading. See ya.